This is The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel. And you're listening to or watching The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of, the only movie prop podcast brought to you by Prop Store?
Heritage.
I
think. Yeah, I think we're on a Heritage Week. Well, it's brought to you by both, as always.
Brought to you by both. But the first half of the show brought to you by Heritage, HA.com. Check out all their auctions, from movie props to coins and baseball cards and everything in between. They got a lot.
Yeah,
of
they had
stuff.
a great
auction going all the time. Yeah,
illustration auction this week.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. I was watching a couple of things. I stopped myself from pulling the trigger, but I was watching a bunch of stuff. Yeah,
good for you.
It was
good
really
restraint.
good looking.
Kelvin did tell me the story about the Betty Page piece, the Robert McGinnis Betty Page piece, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, it was a very cool piece. They had a couple of pieces. It was a McGinnis Betty Page piece, which is not something that he normally draws, and he drew it very specifically for wonderful illustrator Jim Silk, who did the book on Betty Page, one could argue, and it was for that piece. And originally, Jim Silk forgot to tell them that's what it was, so it was just kind of in as a piece. And then basically they told him that he sort of told them that sort of near the last minute. They kind of told him, and of course once they sort of updated it, it kind of was like it went kind of cuckoo in a good way. So good for Jim.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I've had the pleasure of meeting and dining with Jim, who's I mean, old school in the best of ways. I mean, I think he's in his 90s now, and just like he's interviewed Alfred Hitchcock and
he used to run and edit his own film magazine, of which the name escapes me, of course, at the moment, which I'm an asshole. And years ago, he actually gave me copies. They're pretty incredible. I wish I could scan them all, like I had the time to
I think Kelvin's actually working on that. I think that is
he claims it, but
do you think
I'll
that's big talk?
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, now he's been put to task by The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of, so we set it live on air, and now he has to do it.
That would be an incredible Stuff Dreams Are Made Of Kickstarter of some sort, to pay money to get people to make fun of Kelvin for not scanning,
to scan stuff.
To make fun of him.
Just make fun of him.
Not to actually give any money to him. Yeah,
it's a mock starter. Yeah,
exactly. Come on, get started, or I'm going to mock you.
That's very good. Yeah. That's right. He was also very close with Sam Peckinpah, which is also amazing.
They were very good friends, and I believe there's some sort of a screenplay about that kind of in the works. But
and had to do with the Wild Bunch, and just wow. Yeah,
I believe
really.
It was on set, maybe even for the Wild Bunch. He
drew costume illustrations for it. Again, very wild and very cool. Has great stories and just remembers everything. Like if you ask he doesn't. You have to kind of get him going, so he doesn't just offer stuff. But if you can ask a specific enough question, he'll just pull this great story out from the old days.
I feel like he Hollywood. Probably saw and had the opportunity to take a lot of props and didn't.
Yes, I think that's where we come back around to. Yeah.
Had a real opportunity, standing there holding the Maltese Falcon or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
I'll get it next time. So Dave, we before we do our what's new in props, I just wanted to call out we did another fakes episode, and as always, those things kind of land with a bit of a mushroom cloud on the internet.
It's so enjoyable to watch, just because the lady doth protest too much rule. Yeah.
Yes, and there was some kerfuffling going on, and this time there was less sort of grandstanding, but just the odd sort of somebody sent me a couple of links of discussions that had been shut down on Facebook in a movie props group, which is pretty funny because it was a discussion about movie props under the auspices of we're not sponsors. So that was free advertising for our podcast, and it didn't fly, which seems thin as far as an excuse goes. So take from that what you will.
No, that's actually very true. I believe in China, they shut down a lot of discussions of democracy because you and I are not sponsors of. We're not
China.
sponsors, of China. So yeah, they kind of shut those down as well.
That's right. But they are very up on the fake props discussion all over Weibo. Isn't that their
Is
like
that their collectible thingamabobby or whatever?
No, Weibo I think is
that's
their
Facebook.
Or their like WhatsApp. I think yes, it's a social media thing that's like specific to China.
Do they have something where I can sell like old toys that nobody really wants?
Jackie Chan posters.
Do they have like a what's that or whatever that other one is? The
Maybe
new one? Yeah.
Maybe you should
someone let me know where the Chinese collectible market's at.
Yeah, just don't talk about democracy. Yeah.
So
what's new in props?
I was just gonna say, look, you don't have to like what we're saying. You don't have you can be selling fakes. Do whatever you want, I guess, is the honest answer. But just a word to the wise: when you start cutting off the discussion, it does sort of paint a little bit of a kind of a guilty picture. That's just a word to the wise. You know what I mean? Yeah. Stop talking about who murdered my wife. No, there was no discussion of who murdered my wife. No, none. I didn't do it, but no. Yeah. Just a thought.
Yeah, you could write a book called "If I Did It."
Yeah,
the fake prop story.
If I faked it. So enjoy that, everyone, on the discussion groups. What's new in props? By the way, I will say one of the nice things has been getting some emails from various collectors, good and bad. I mean, unfortunately, in the bad sense, people kind of telling us stories about things that they've bought that sort of turned out to be fake. And by the way, I'll go one step further. Not all of them were specific to any one person. Stories from eBay, stories even from things from, occasionally things that slip through in an auction house. So, I mean, fakes just suck. I mean, there's just no other way of saying that. But on the other side, also a bunch of emails from people kind of taking their collection and going, what do I have here? One guy wrote us about basically had never understood how to do a screen match, wanted to do screen matches until we sort of vaguely explained how to do a screen grab from a 4K, and has started getting matches on some of his stuff. Which I don't know. I didn't know that was that hard, but I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just didn't know people didn't quite realize sort of.
Yeah, I think he assumed that we had some kind
like
of
some secret technology. Yes,
whatever.
exactly. Yeah.
As
really pleased
Hollywood
that people are doing that. Yeah. So keep it up.
So that was a good thing that came out of it. I actually had funny. I had somebody texted me a photo of a Wrath of Khan phaser. From another collection, just saying, is this any good? And actually I looked at it and it was like I was like turning it all over, and my only question was, is it TMP or Khan? But it definitely it was correct. Gotcha. And I just said, good news, and would you like to sell it, because I need a real one. So the discussion has been lively and flowing, and keep writing us. We can't authenticate all of your props, but maybe we can point you in the right direction or help you authenticate your own props, which is the most fun of the rewarding research process that Dave and I espouse so loudly on this podcast. Do you have a what's new in props? I do, but I'm going to use, as we talked about, I'm going to use it to segue into our.
Mine is an incredibly minor what's new in props, which was just I've been just clearing, as you know, the ongoing clearing stuff out. Just a lot of, I'm on the odds and ends phase. I'm not talking about pulling things off the wall. I'm just talking about, odds and ends of like paperwork and some posters and all that kind of, just, I hate to say, I don't mean to say junk, but just stuff that like is taking up room, but I didn't notice it. And in my this week, sort of what I found in my closet kind of a thing was, I believe it's from Master Replicas, and they would do those signature series of lightsabers, like where they would do like a Darth Vader lightsaber, and then they would have like a run of X number of like signed by, whatever. I have found the plaque of a Master Replica's Darth Vader lightsaber that is signed by James Earl Jones. But I do not have a lightsaber, nor did I ever purchase a lightsaber.
Oh, amazing! Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure of that?
That 1,000%. There are.
Okay.
I know I buy things, and sometimes like, wait, where did that come from? 1,000%. Never purchased a Master Replica's lightsaber. Nobody ever gave me a Master Replica's lightsaber. Have never had a replica lightsaber in my collection, and yet I found, so my what's new in props is a signed autographed James Earl Jones plaque. Let me know if anyone's interested. For sale on Chinese WhatsApp.
Yeah. What are you looking for it, Dave?
I don't know. What is one? I mean, it seems to me like it's priceless, right?
Should we do a silent auction? Just everybody write in your bids, and we'll see who gets it.
Let me know what you think it's worth, and then I'll figure out if I can sell it.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy. Like, I mean, like honestly, staring at it, just going. I mean, I can only assume it was in a box with other like there have been a couple of times where
it's somebody's thing that they sold you stuff.
Yeah, someone gave me like a whole bunch of like odds and ends. You know what I mean? And I can only assume that somehow it was in a box of odds and ends, and obviously was not something I was like actively purchasing. But you ask for what's new in props, and that is what is new in props at the Dave Mandel residence. So yeah,
very good, very good.
Top that, motherfucker.
This happened in the off season, but I'm bringing it back up here because we were sort of like we're writers.
Well, you sort of said you'd been tracking it for a while.
Yes, correct. Yes, this has been ongoing since I arrived in London, and I thought you and I had talked about it offline, but then when I realized you had not.
I think you told me the A side, but you never got to the B side. So, and I thought the B side was very enjoyable.
So thus I'm confident I haven't told this story on the podcast, but I was thinking about it this week because I was just thinking how I used to do a lot of shaking of the trees and trying to find stuff out in the wild, and I just don't have time to do that anymore.
And I think that's true. And this is something we're going to get to, I think maybe a little bit with our guest as well. I think that's true of anyone that's been collecting a while at this point. I think a lot of us started trying to shake trees. Maybe that was our the way we got into it, or at some point there was, whether it was just because we were younger or whatnot, and also the hobby was different, that the tree shaking was more readily available. There were more trees. Yeah.
And also just honestly, 15 years ago, there were just more living people that worked on the movies that we care about so much. And also the hobby was a little less known, so you could get in touch and things would come out and up. And anyway, I did have some success. When we say shaking the trees, of course, we mean going to the source and tracking down crew members that worked on movies,
finding older crew members, preferably widows, and just shaking them till they give you props.
Well, standing in their yard and shaking their trees to creep them out until you say, "Give me your props," and I'll get off your lawn.
Just make that tree shaking noise go away.
Ooh, give me your props. That's very good. So I when I got to the UK, I was very excited because I had access to all these new crew members that worked on all these UK productions that I was obsessed with that were local. And I did a lot of this in LA, but I was always trying to find local people where I could go visit them or drive out.
A lot of your hiring, I mean, you could admit this now. A lot of your hiring on House of the Dragon, like when they brought you somebody like, hey, this is a set painter, you would kind of go, did he ever paint sets in a Star Wars movie? No, he's fired. We're not hiring him.
Get rid of him. Find me a Star Wars guy. I did a lot of that. No, I just went to I went to the most senior crew members on my show, and I had them say, have you ever worked with this person? It says in IMDb that you might have. Can you tell them that I'm coming and that I'm not a lunatic, or that I am a lunatic, but you know me and I'm nice?
Right, a good lunatic. Yeah.
So I had that happen.
I won't shake their trees. I promise.
Because I did try to contact a lot of people. I will say Americans are much more willing to talk to you. The British are very, very. You don't get returned emails and texts a lot. But there was a standby props guy that I was tracking from Batman '89 that I was able to actually get through my props master, who had
That makes sense.
I guess
Yep.
worked with him at some point previously. And I think he's now art department, but he had worked with him and knew him, and just put us in touch and said, "Hey, this is Ryan. He's cool. He's the world's biggest Batman fan." And we talked for, honestly, Dave, 3 years. I mean, just kind of on and off. And it was during COVID, and he kept saying, "I keep meaning to get back in the loft, and I think I have this and that." Look, he did not have like the missing what gauntlet, the thing,
Right.
where does he get all those wonderful toys, the hero gauntlet that has never shown up anywhere.
And also it wasn't like he was leading you on in any way, shape, or form. He just, like, it was a guy who was like, "Yeah, I might have a couple odds and ends." I mean, it was that.
And he kept saying, like, "You're really motivating me to get up there and figure out what I have, and do you think this stuff will be worthwhile?" And he would say crew jackets and newspapers and maybe some Gotham City artwork, and who knows what he might have forgotten that was up there. So that was the fun A side. And then one day he texted me and he's like, "I'm finally getting up into the loft, and I had more stuff than I realized, and it was very exciting." And then he said, "Well, it was around a holiday or something." So he's like, "I'm going away, or the family's going away or something, so I'll come back to you," right, on the B side. And then he came back and he said, "I got all of my stuff out and I laid it all out with my wife, and I looked at it and I realized these are all of my career memories, and they're all wrapped up in this, and it's so important to me. And thank you for motivating me to go into my loft and pull this out so I could see it and realize how much I love it.
What a great treasure this is. Yeah.
I'm not going to part with a single thing." So that's how that one ended. Sadly for Ryan. But hey, I guess I did a solid. I did a good service.
Look at us. You've got this fine sort of pat on the back, thank you, and I've got a signed James Earl Jones lightsaber plaque. I mean,
he actually did say,
really,
he did say, "Do you like Star Wars?" Because I have a James Earl Jones signed plaque. I don't have a lightsaber or anything else, but I do have that, and I would love to send it to you. I didn't work on Star Wars, but I do have it.
What I'm looking for is the guy sort of in the "you got chocolate in my peanut butter." I'm looking for a guy that goes, "I have one of the James Earl Jones limited edition lightsabers, but the plaque is missing.
I need a plaque."
Yeah. That's what I need. Yeah.
Or better,
wait a second,
I have a fake replica lightsaber that I would like to increase the value of. I would like to buy your signature plaque.
I would like to buy your forged signature plaque.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see. I think the email's already rolling in, Dave.
Yeah. No, I mean, the mailbox is bursting. Well, with that in mind, the notion of sort of, I don't know, is this any kind of an introduction? The notion of sort of shaking trees and old time collectors. We like to from time to time just bring on a collector that we've known a while to kind of tell his story. And this fine gentleman has, I think, connections. I think movie wise, I think we sort of first knew about him really as a Blade Runner collector, if I may say. I don't know if he identifies himself fully that way and he's as much anymore, but certainly was a Blade Runner collector, maybe even the Blade Runner collector for a while. And then, of course, what made me laugh is when I realized that one day that, like, oh, wait, I know this guy. We had worked together on the Clerks animated show. He was one of the directors on
I didn't realize he
Clerks.
worked on Clerks.
He'd been hired by Chris Bailey, who was our head of animation. And so then, of course, in the sort of very funny sort of small world, it was like, oh, wait a second, I know you. That's
hilarious.
Which is very, very enjoyable. I can't wait to hear what he kept from Clerks. From the Clerks animated show.
I want to.
Very excited. Yeah.
So this guy's a good friend of ours in the podcast, and I've known him for many, many years now, and indispensable source of knowledge on Blade Runner specifically. He does collect other things, which we'll let him talk about. But I think he started with an obsession about Blade Runner, and he will tell that story. But he's also kind of a writer collector himself. I mean, more of a director collector. I mean, we'll let him speak to that.
I think of him as a director, but he can tell that too. Yeah.
But he will speak to it. But yes, he's an animation director. His name is Steve Loader, and he's worked on such a series as Kim Possible and the Happy Monster Band. He was a producer on Kim Possible, The Ghost and Molly McGee, and most recently the Emmy-winning Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which is a Marvel series that's on Disney Channel and Disney Plus, and just really excellent. I actually checked out the first episode with my kids, who I think were a bit too young to quite get it, but I was like, oh, we'll come back to this because this is cool and good. And the animation is really kind of new and interesting, and it feels like just a bunch of interesting things going on in animation. So we'll talk to him about all that stuff. But anyway, without further ado, Mr. Steve Loader.
Hey, Steve, how are you today?
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm a huge fan of the show.
Dear Lord.
Oh man.
I'm usually sometimes the first viewer on YouTube. Like it's
nice.
0 views, and then after me, it's the first view because I wait to see it turn up, and it's I love it.
Well, just when collecting turns sad. But thank you. We really do appreciate it.
We do appreciate it.
Yeah. And a fine reminder to everyone to please, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get notifications that we are live, and also that you get to see it, and also that we get, I think we got like $30 last month from our YouTube views. So we're really quite pleased about that. That's 15 each. We split right down the middle. We go 50-50. So yeah, we're really happy about that. And I put quite a dent in my heritage bill. So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yes.
Steve, are you okay as a starting point? In my mind, in Ryan's mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds that know you, we think of you as the Blade Runner collector. Do you think that, let's start with, is it fair? And then how did that happen?
That's fair. Yeah, and it's interesting because I've been a little bit behind the scenes as far as Blade Runner collecting, but the word has gotten out, and
the word has gotten out.
It has gotten out,
good and bad, good and bad,
good and bad. And I've helped auction houses and collectors authenticate pieces and things like that. So yeah, I think it's because I'd been collecting since 1982, since film release.
The movie came out, and for you, it just changed everything. I'm assuming because you were not a prop collector in any way, shape, or form before that. Were you obsessive about movies before that a little bit? I mean, you were a movie fan, correct?
A little bit. Well, I was 11 years old when I saw it on opening day. I was too young to see it, frankly, but still I saw it. But I was actually interested in the film the year before when they started kind of the promotional campaign. And I was in New York, so there was a lot of sci-fi conventions in New York. So a lot of the early promo material would show up at these conventions, and I'd buy the folders that had the early press kits or the early kind of things like that. So and everyone was coming off of the high of Harrison Ford being Indiana Jones. So there was big interest in the film, of course. So it started there, but yeah, I wasn't really into even movie memorabilia at that point. It was Blade Runner that kind of pushed me
took
into
you
it.
On that journey.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's no perfect way of encompassing it, but you see the movie, and what is it about? Why that movie? I mean, sometimes maybe you're just the perfect age, the perfect time, and whatever, but what to this day do you still love about it?
Well, there's a spectacle that everyone talks about. But for me, I mean, I was an interesting child. I mean, I guess there was a sense of ennui because I really related to Rick Deckard as a character.
You wondered if you were a human or a robot? Is that kind of what you're going?
I don't know, just the depressed,
you were an alcoholic? An 11-year-old alcoholic?
Yeah. Sorry, Mom, Dad. No. But the depressed protagonist, the character that lost his humanity, searching for his soul again, I don't know, for some reason spoke to me as an 11-year-old. But yeah, I really gravitated toward Rick Deckard as a character. And it's funny because every interview that I've done about Blade Runner since, I'm usually the guy that talks about Rick Deckard. Everyone talks about the 2019, the spinners, and
the rain
Saeed and things like that. And I talk about Rick Deckard because I that was the most compelling part of the film was his arc to me. So yeah.
So you started, because obviously you're 11, 12 years old. Obviously you're not headed right to a prop auction. I'm assuming the movie comes out and then you become so obsessed with it, you begin to digest basically anything that's written about it. Is that sort of your pathway, so to speak?
Anything that's written about it. And then at the time there was a couple of things that were accessible. There was Movie Collector World, I think, was out at the time, that newspaper, if you remember that kind of way back, that had like these classified ads for posters, lobby cards, and things like that. And props did turn up sometimes in that newspaper.
Was that a local thing to New York, or was that like a
No,
fanzine?
No,
or...
it existed. It was, I mean, it again, I think each collectible field kind of had this sort of it was printed on newsprint. It was like there was Toy Collector magazine, there was this, I'm sure there were 17 other ones for different fields, and it would come out, I think, weekly. I don't know about the movie one did. The toy one came out weekly. I think the movie one came out weekly. You could pay to get it like FedEx to you, so that if you lived on the West, because it would mail from one of the coasts, and if you lived on the other coast, you were behind by a couple of days if you only paid for a regular mail subscription. And they would have lots of classifieds, and eventually I think even like phone in and mail auctions kind of a thing. They would have those kinds of things. I mean, again, I definitely saw it in the day. And that was one of the early sources of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a terrific resource. And at the time, because Blade Runner collecting has kind of three phases. It has the phase when it came out in 1982 when the film was a bomb and nobody wanted anything from it.
Right.
Then there was the cult version of it. After the videotape had come out, it kind of found some audience, and so there was some interest kind of percolating. And then there was the director's cut. And the director's cut is really what changed the entire market overnight.
Right.
Yeah. Were you in LA by the time the director's cut come out? Did you see it in the theater? Were you able the work print?
The famous New Art work print. Yeah, I did. It was a
awesome.
revelation. I mean, because honestly, there wasn't a lot of differences. You had a couple of different, like there's a crane shot in Anemoid Row, and of course the temp music was different at the end and things like that. But for the most part, it was kind of people rediscovering the film for the first time and saying, "Hey, this film is really great." It's kind of the same film,
but no happy ending, right?
No happy ending, right?
And no voice,
no narration, right?
And no narration, right.
And to this day, are you voiceover guy, or do you prefer the director's cut?
I prefer the director's cut. I prefer the final cut of everything.
Yes.
But yeah, the no narration for me.
When you saw the narration, I'm just curious, because I have always sort of defended the narration ever so slightly. Did you hate the narration, or you just preferred it when you saw it without it?
I preferred it without it only because I liked, kind of understanding the inner monologue that Deckard is having as opposed to it being told to me. But there were like lines like about his ex-wife that were told in the VO narration that kind of did add to, okay, now I understand who this character is. So there's pros and cons to it, but it did feel somewhat unnecessary in the big picture.
For me, it's funny.
Did you see it originally with or without?
I'm younger, so I saw the director's cut for the first time, and I saw it really young because Harrison Ford, Han Solo and Indiana Jones, he's in this thing too, and I tried a bunch of times, and it really didn't connect with me until college, when I finally and also I was watching on this tiny crappy television, so the scope and the scale and being surrounded by the Vangelis score and all that, it didn't land with me. And I actually think that maybe I would have found easier access to it if I had seen the voiceover version first. I've now seen it, but I saw it so many times without as the director's cut, because I think in whatever it was, 92 or 93, right, when the director's cut landed, that was the big hot VHS, and Harrison Ford and whatever playing a detective, and that looks cool, and all the neon and the rain and all that. So I just tried a bunch of times, and I just couldn't find. But I knew that I would like it. That's the thing. I knew I just had to find that access point to it, and I loved all the design of it. So I just kept going back, and finally, I remember I sat and watched it on big screen in college with a bunch of friends, and it was finally like and that made sense. And then I saw the many years later, but I saw the final cut when it did that theatrical tour in LA. And it was the year that maybe the year after I moved to LA, and I saw it in the big screen at the Landmark Theater. And that was the time that it really was like, this might be my favorite movie. It just like, it imprinted on me. But I almost had to go into that space and be surrounded by the whole thing in the way that you were in the theatrical experience of it. But yeah, everybody has a different way into Blade Runner.
So Steve, back to let's call it 1982, 1983, young Steve in New York, the adventures of young Steve in New York.
Younger Steve.
You're buying lobby
He's still a young
cards,
man.
you're buying the poster. What else are you finding, or what are you doing with your love of Blade Runner? You're picking up magazine articles.
Oh yeah.
Where is this taking you? Yeah.
I mean, everything. I think the bulk of my collection was acquired at that time because it was so easy to get. Standees, all the foreign movie posters, all the foreign lobby cards, promo slides, you name it. Scripts. Actually, scripts turned up.
Interesting.
Dangerous Days scripts turned up.
So all the various drafts too. You're getting a chance to kind of see the journey of the script.
Yeah, and are you finding those at conventions, or is that through the movie magazine? Or
it was a variety of places, and this was on the East Coast, surprisingly, where I would assume it was even easier to find it here on the West. I mean, the West Coast. We can go into, there was certain things happening on the West Coast we can probably segue into, which were the meat of everything. But yeah, it was, and I wasn't aware of it until later, unfortunately.
Sure, of course, yeah.
But yeah.
You were 12 years old. Come on, give yourself a break, yeah.
No, I still kick myself for it. But
and he had a drinking problem, as we covered.
No, but it is, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say, it's very funny to me because it's like, I was 12 years old and I loved everything, but in no point did I acquire an original script or an original poster or anything. And you are the equivalent of, I have a couple of buddies that were like the 11-year-olds that thought to themselves, I'm going to buy a Star Wars figure and then I'm going to buy a second one and I'm going to put it in a box and it's going to be like you were seeing something that the rest of us weren't, not out of trying to profit from it, but just sort of the notion of like, I want this stuff on a level that 11-year-old me, who was collecting crap, comics and baseball cards, but just not thinking about any of this. So I always am sort of impressed. Yeah.
I was a precocious kid and I would cold call crew members, anyone I could find,
And what were you asking for? Like, were you just saying, like, do you have anything you would sell, or were you looking for specific things?
It was mainly, I love what you've done. It was just so excited. And there was always a notion of, I hated working on that thing. I have some stuff lying around. Do you want it? Things like that. But yeah, it was, and I honestly, at that time, certainly in the early days, I think the crew appreciated hearing someone, because remember, the film came out and it was panned at that time. So yeah, and it was a hard shoot. So yeah, I think everyone really enjoyed that. But what was going on at the same time in LA was the props and costumes kind of getting out there. And here's the funny thing about Blade Runner is there's a ton of mythology, a lot of tall tales. Some of the stuff has turned into fact, even though it's not, just because these are the way stories work. And I like to believe in absolutes, like I can verify and prove this did happen or not. But the key thing that happened in 82 was two things. One, the great mythical asset sale that you hear about. Like, there was an asset sale on the lot and I showed up too late and I saw someone, buying this or that and stuff like that.
Some guy was wheeling out a spinner. Yeah.
Driving away in the spinner.
I have never found any proof of that asset sale existing, ever.
Really?
And I've talked to many people. I in some ways, I feel like it's a little bit of a cover-up as to what pieces have ended up in the market that maybe they shouldn't have had.
Okay.
But I can verify, because the other thing that makes it confusing to me is because there was an asset sale, it wasn't an asset sale, a lot of the stuff ended up at the retake room, which we know of now as Real Clothes.
Okay.
But there was a storefront in Studio City called the Retake Room. And so they got most of the costumes. They certainly got all of the background stuff, all of the denizens of, LA 2019. But a lot of the stuff that you had seen prior to kind of the Profiles in History Jeff Walker auction, prior to that, the Priss costumes, the JF Sebastian costumes, all that stuff came from the Retake Room sale. And I know a lot of the guys that bought it. It's interesting because there was an animation studio around the corner from the retake room.
And so
And
those guys were constantly in and out of the retake room. That's
exactly.
very funny.
Yeah, I think because of the design of Blade Runner, it really attracted animators and people like that. So those were the guys that were scooping up stuff, and those are the guys I was able to kind of track down and get receipts from, literally, to see I bought the Pris costume and stuff like that. And I've relied on a lot of their memory to, did you see this? Did you see this?
I think that's where my shirt came from, because I believe in the original history of my shirt actually traces back to that collector. I think his name is Bill Thomas, and who's mentioned, he's like the third generation guy in the Ruby Slippers of Oz book. So not, it's not Kent Warner's generation, the original guys. It was like there was the next generation, and then there were the young guys that were coming up in the 80s, sort of when all the original guard were kind of dying sadly. Anyway, so it came through him. But what I understand is that he had acquired it from the retailer shop where you could go in, and I was always thinking it was real clothes, but I think it was probably the retake room. And then he used it as trade fodder because he didn't care particularly about Blade Runner, but he was trying to swap and trade to get stuff from the classic films that he was interested in and whatever. So I think mine, my shirt came through there, which is the Deckard shirt from the Bradbury
tear.
building. Yeah.
Right.
The tear at the end of the
tear. So sorry, just a little bit on the retake room. When they got this stuff, as far as you know, were they selling it labeled as from Blade Runner, or did you have to, you said they were, okay. So it wasn't like you had to go there and go through it and like, oh, I think this is, it was labeled as such. Okay.
It wasn't like It's a Wrap. It was pretty much, it was, you were buying it as Harrison Ford's costume or this thing.
Okay, gotcha.
And in a lot of cases, the costumes were fairly complete. Like the Pris costume was kind of head to toe with the shoes and everything.
Wow.
So, and the Zora stuff came from there. So pretty much most of the stuff at that time came from there. But a lot of the collectors sat on that stuff. You didn't see a lot of that stuff turn up in the market until like the mid 90s, actually.
Well, some of that probably goes back to the movie Nobody Caring. So it probably felt like, not that they were buying it necessarily to make a profit, but also, I guess, a sense of nobody cares, nobody wants it. I couldn't even sell it if I wanted to, is my guess. And so going back to that sale really quickly, one last thing. So obviously Ryan's shirt and whatnot, but like Deckard stuff, like hero, like main character stuff.
Yeah, there was, I have a little bit of proof of this, that there was Deckard pieces. There wasn't a lot of them. Ryan's shirt, I believe the full costume that turned up recently, which was also the climax shirt and the suit jacket and the pants and the shoes, I believe also came from that sale.
Oh, wow.
Although I don't have 100% verification on that.
Okay.
But there was definitely stuff missing because some of the people that I knew that went shopping for that were intentionally looking for the Harrison Ford stuff. And they were there like on the day that stuff came in. And there wasn't a lot there. But I still feel like there's still some stuff in some closets somewhere.
Sure, of course, yeah.
That may eventually turn up. But if anything does turn up, it will probably be that as the point of origin.
Fascinating.
And
so
then, that's the big costume dump. And then going now off to the other side, to the prop world, those stories of the asset sale, you think those that not so much. And so is it just people kind of, forgive me, taking stuff off the set and whatnot and connected to the show? I mean, which, by the way, how it happens everywhere else, but it's just funny that this asset sale, because I've heard those are some of the first stories I ever heard. If only you could have been there. The guy hid that piece and then he came back and was able to buy it. And it's like, wait, none of this is real? I mean, it's kind of great. Yeah.
I mean, I'll happily kind of proverbially eat my hat if proof does come forward. But I mean, everything has been in the market has kind of been traced back to a place of origin. And there's a couple of things like Deckard's pistol. That came from Jeff Walker, who was the publicist on the film, who has said that he got it from the asset sale, which I love Jeff. It would surprise me that you would sell a live fire pistol through an asset sale, to be honest. But
it was the 80s.
But and the funny thing also about the pistol, just as a sideline, is I think I get asked constantly, like, are there more than one hero Deckard pistols? And I don't think so. I think there was one, which always blows my mind, that really? This is a pretty
Right.
major
Not
Hollywood
two,
film.
like at least
Right.
two. Yeah.
Healthy budget. You could have had two. I mean, they made extra pieces. So that extra grips, the little cartridge, light up cartridge, there's extras of those.
I have
But
one.
for the, yeah, exactly. Right. So, but for the most part, I think there was just one hero gun.
And then obviously a bunch of stunts, obviously.
And a bunch of stunts, yeah. And the funny thing about the stunts is, so they're all cast off the hero guns. They all have the same serial number, things like that. And they were used for a variety of things. You had the ones that were going to be used for Deckard had the grips cut off, and then the black grips cut off, and then replaced with the real grips. The police ones just ended up being straight out of the mold, just black, top to bottom. And there's been a handful that have turned up that have had some questions attached to them. For instance, there's one that turned up that had white grips.
Right, sort of
recently,
whitish,
sort of
sort of
auction,
strange
right.
grip, yeah.
And I'd inspected that piece because everyone said, "Oh, did the grip get replaced, or did the paint, fade, or whatever?" It's 100% piece. The pistol itself is 100% real, and the grip is not a repaint. It is white grips. And one thing I have come to believe as collecting Blade Runner and seeing all this stuff is there's always been purpose. Everything they create, even as well, why would they need that? There was always a reason behind it. It wasn't just happened overnight. And I suspect, again, no proof on this, but I wonder if that pistol was Gaff's. Because Gaff had an aesthetic, a certain color design to him, and the attention to detail on the making of this film was incredible. So I could see someone saying, because Bryant had a pistol. So I would assume Gaff was a full-on out in the street Blade Runner, so Why wouldn't he have? But there's no photos where you can see it at all. I mean, his coat, I'm sure it's there. I'm sure there's a pistol there, but his coat covers it up. And I have seen every single on-set photograph ever. And I've looked for certain key things, and I have never seen a picture of
really
him
interesting.
like that.
I feel like he does autograph shows. Have you never tried to meet him and ask?
I've worked.
Oh, you've actually worked with him. Okay.
I've hired. He's been on a bunch of my shows, but he doesn't remember it. He
okay.
always asks me, like, if the hat ever turns up or any of his other costume pieces, let him know. And I'm like, well, you'll have competition from me, but I'll let you know.
Have Gaff pieces ever been around?
Nope. It's funny. There's a couple of key characters that Gaff has never turned up, which is shocking because he has a lot of costume changes in the film. Leon stuff has never turned up. Holden stuff. So it's funny because there's a couple of characters that you like. J.F. Sebastian, I think his entire wardrobe is out there in some capacity, and Zora. But for other characters, it's like there's nothing. And especially Gaff, which had all the pieces.
It took until a year and a half ago before the first major baddie piece showed up, and that was a charity win that was living in England. I mean, of all things,
it's a crazy story. And I asked, like, I tried to find the lineage to that, and just going if that came from Retake Room, and that would make sense. But it was a charity auction in the UK, so I guess just putting some pieces together. Ridley did do
Ridley
reshoots.
Scott, maybe,
he did reshoots in London. After the film initially wrapped. So I didn't think that there was any baddie scenes that he filmed in London, but there's a possibility. There's no other reason why the coat would have been here. So there you go. So and also which segues into the Bonham's Charles Node auction, which was the second big costume dump in November of '99. So that was
just give our listeners just a little baby background on Node and what that whole thing and that collection, if you will.
Yeah, Charles Node was the costume designer on the film. So basically, he with Michael Kaplan, and everything he did, it's there, and everything was custom, and it was all absolutely beautiful. But a lot of it wasn't out there at that time. And so he had pieces, I guess, at the end of filming, he asked for some key pieces, and they gave him some things. And his Bonham's auction was pretty incredible. So a lot of the pieces, there was a lot of Deckard pieces in that auction. There was the majority of Rachel pieces were in that auction. So all of the coats, the black tight costume from the Tyrell Voight Comp sequence came from there. So most of the key stuff came from there. So the Deckard pieces were the shirts, the trench coat, the ties. And what's interesting is at that time, there still wasn't as much interest in Blade Runner. So I did, get a couple of pieces from there. This Deckard behind me is one of them. But there wasn't a lot of competition. I think my main competition at the time was Greg Hansen, and I could openly name him because I know he had pieces and was very public about them at the time. But yeah, I think it was just me and him bidding against each other on a bunch of these things. And if you look back at some of the prices that they got for this stuff, it's ridiculous. Like Rachel's costume was £950.
Oh my God!
So it's like,
oh my Lord!
Yeah, crazy.
What was the highest fetching piece in that auction? Do you remember?
It was the Deckard trench coat. I think that was like £10,000. I think somewhere in that zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say for our listeners, copies of that catalog do show up on eBay from time to time. It is highly worthwhile as a piece of, I don't know. I guess I'll simply
collector
say
history
reference. Yeah, exactly. Boy, that'd be one that'd be nice to have a PDF of.
I do think there's not a lot of pictures in there of the costumes, honestly. There's like one,
but
kind
just
of
the
major...
list. I mean, just the listing. Yeah.
And it's funny because I think that because Charles Node was in England, I think that a lot of the pieces were kind of the end pieces, meaning like the Deckard trench coat is incredible because I was able to touch it and it's got a film on it. It's got a probably used in the rooftop sequence because it's got kind of, as soon as you touch it, you have to wash your hands after that because suddenly it's got this kind of layer of grime on it. Like, it's like dirt and smoke and everything is just collected on this particular piece, and it has scratches on the back. So I think that was, okay, we're done shooting. Give it to Charles.
Put it in his car trunk. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
The boot, Dave, the boot.
Oh, sorry.
As loyal listeners know, you voted for Ryan to receive Prop Store's favorite host award for seasons 3, 4, and 5 of this podcast. Will season 7 be Dave's lucky season? No.
It will not.
Boo. Or will he continue to be shut out? Only you can decide.
Only morons can decide.
That's how you get to where you are, Dave. I'm relentlessly positive. That's why they like me. In order to cast your vote, go to propstore.com and make a purchase from the Buy Now section of Prop Store website using a Dave10 or Ryan10 discount code, which also entitles you to 10% off your entire Buy Now order. As we saw in previous years, how one big purchase like a V'ger can sway the scales for Ryan or Dave, we wanted to highlight some top items currently available at propstore.com. Okay,
here are
Dave,
the things that I will be buying tonight using the Dave10 code in an effort to win this for myself. Number 1, a Land of the Lost Sleestack creature costume from the 2009 film, £4,495. Number 2, Batman Returns 1992, The Penguin, Danny DeVito's makeup test casting, £3,995. Number 3, too bad it's not number 4. Number 3, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Charles Hugh Grant's wedding suit, £3,395. And how about some U.S. items that I'll be buying, Ryan? Share them with the folks.
The Croft Super Show from 1976 to 1978. The sparkling red Wonderbug Dune Buggy model miniature with a comic book. And that's very specifically priced $7,845.
That was marked down from $7,850.
Yeah, there you go.
So you get a $5 discount, and then you get 10% on top of that. Yeah, that's pretty great. Yeah.
From X-Men First Class, Beast, Nicholas Holtz, Master Reference Cowl with wig for $5,145. And from Star Wars Return of the Jedi, heard of that film? The hand-drawn Endor thumbnails for the portfolio illustrations by Ralph McQuarrie for a very reasonably priced $4,500. That's a good one. I
might look at that one for real. Yeah. Like I might actually look at that one.
Yeah,
for real.
and then use Ryan 10 because it's only fair.
And then just use Ryan 10.
Yeah.
There are over 5,000 buy now items that I can buy to try and push this contest in my favor on the site from which you and I can choose, with new items added every day. The Dave 10 discount code will be active through May 31st, 2024. Use it today. I'm changing this as we speak.
Good vamping.
To it to ensure your vote gets counted to determine Dave as favorite host for season 7 of the podcast. The contest is coming to a close soon. Get your votes in today and buy at prop stores. Buy it now. Dave 10 sale.
Love it. Because it's driven us all crazy as Blade Runner collectors, you included, I'm sure. That is the only known trench coat that's out there, right? That's in the wild, so to speak.
Yes, I've spent many years tracking them down. There's been many false leads, and it's gotten to the point now where I find it hard to believe that there's only one, because first off, I believe there's at least 5. There should be at least 5.
And it's raining the entire film.
Right. We have pictures of Ford with his stuntman, and they're both wearing the same costume. So clearly there's 2, without a doubt. But it has been surprising to me that they didn't, what we see of as modern Hollywood is they'll produce 10 of anything or 20 of anything just as backup for the backup for the backup. Whereas in those days, not so much.
Sure, but even so, you would think with 5 another one would show. Even though 5 is a smaller number, you'd think another one would show, and that's certainly something like the Rutger Hauer price.
Sure.
The price on the baddie thing, the price on the gun a couple of years ago. I mean, certainly in the Star Wars world, these Star Wars prices beget other props kind of coming out of the woodwork,
right?
And it's happening a little bit with Blade Runner, but maybe not on the same scale, which is kind of interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny. The Roy Batty coat pretty much matches to almost everything on screen. So
you think there could be one of those?
Easy to believe. Yeah, it was pretty custom. It was pretty built.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with crew and some other people, and there's a couple of things that they're holding on to here and there, but for the most part, as an educated guess, I don't think you're going to see a lot of stuff turning up in the market from here. I think that the big numbers, new stuff, fresh to market. I think that most of the stuff that will be out is out. There may be a few surprises here and there, but the payday is here, and also people are aging into a place where they want to kind of have the money.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Do you have any sense of, I guess, the two sort of wild cards, I guess one being Harrison Ford, who is reputed to keep costumes from movies he worked on, even though obviously he did not perhaps have a great time on Blade Runner. So I guess that's question number one. Any sense of, has he ever mentioned anything as far as you know of having something? And then number two, what do you think possibly Ridley Scott has held on to? And you may not know the answers to this. I'm just curious.
I know a little bit about these.
Okay, there you go. Look
so
at that.
Ford,
I asked
as
a good
far
question.
as I know, doesn't have anything.
Really? Okay. He hated it that much.
He hated it that much. Because one of the reasons why I believe it is, although I haven't had a chance to ask him, is whenever he's presented with costumes from the film, he's like, oh my God, wow, and would inspect it and stuff like that. It's the reaction of someone, who's in public.
Doesn't have one in the closet.
Yeah, it's very stone-faced. It's like, oh, wow, okay. And Ridley Scott, I can verify, has nothing. There was maybe has a clapper or things like that, but there was one time where somebody had a tie and just wanted to be so nice and sent him a tie, a screen-used Deckard tie, which so maybe now Ridley has that in his collection, or maybe that's the one that turned up in the Warner's archive, because one did turn up in the Warner's archive fairly recently.
Oh, so maybe he gave it back to them.
So, yeah, but
you were talking about, sorry, really quickly, you were talking about Harrison Ford reacting. I'm trying to remember this myself. Did Greg Hansen have a shirt at some point and took it to meet Harrison Ford and like tried to get photos with it, right? Or something like that. There's like an old story. I remember I knew Greg back then. That's very funny.
And
like,
he did.
He did, and showed it to him and got a whole bunch of pictures. And did Ford sign it or no? Maybe he didn't sign it.
No, he didn't sign it. Thank goodness. I'm of that school there. Don't sign on the prop,
I agree
please.
with that. I was trying to remember the story.
Don't sign the
I
props.
I think I remember at the time, honestly, sort of laughing of like, I don't know. Again, I was sort of a baby prop collector at that point. It was just like, why are you bringing the shirt to the guy? Like, I just was like, I don't understand. But anyway, I do vaguely remember that story.
Oh yeah, Greg also.
That's your icebreaker, Dave.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, Greg was a big collector at the time. He had the Luke's ceremonial jacket from the Star Wars, and not the Cylon, all of that. But yeah, so there was And also, just also as a quick sideline, just because I think this was interesting, the full size vehicles and the miniatures and stuff like that. There's actually some lineage and history to some of those items too that are really bizarre. The full size spinners, for instance. I was still working at Disney when the Hero spinner, the Car 44, the full size vehicle, turned up at Disney MGM Studio in Florida.
Right, it was just like on the back lot, right?
Right, it was left rotting in the sun. And so because of my contacts, I was able to get a hold of the right people and offer money and say, I will buy that. And I had a couple of collectors that were willing to throw in and stuff like that. And they were not hearing it. And it was crazy because it was rotting and they weren't doing anything with it. And they ultimately destroyed it. Oh. They destroyed it, and it was hard. That was Car 44. That was the major car. So yeah, it's heartbreaking. They also had a police sedan. Same thing. It became a hazard because they let it rot.
Sure.
Out there, yeah. So that was crazy, but we tried. And then regarding the other full size vehicles, because I do get asked that fairly often, there was 3 spinners. So there was Car 44, which was destroyed at Disney. Car 54, which is the backup one. You kind of see that in the back of shots. It's labeled 54. That's currently owned by a Japanese collector. Okay. And there's been inroads, though. I know that...
Is that the one that was recently on display at the Peterson Museum?
No. The one on the Peterson Museum was a replica.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the spinner, the blue spinner was a replica. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the one in Japan, I know that the seller was making inroads of restoring it and even offering it to some collectors. So that feels like that might turn up for sale at some point. And then the last one is the flying car, which was the one that would be the fiberglass one that would be on the crane. And that one is at Paul Allen's museum in Seattle, the one that got restored and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then what model wise? How many studio scale models were there of the blue spinner?
There was at least 2. The one that everyone wants to talk about is the 40-inch Hero, the one that had the puppet of Deckard and Gaff in it, and that has an interesting story too. It was originally on display at Forbidden Planet in New York City.
Oh wow!
In 1982, in the window, and it got stolen. There was a news report. You can find it in the Daily News if you can go into microfiche and search it out. That it was stolen, and it was weird because it wasn't returned and things like that. And I thought, okay, someone's sitting on it, and they know that people are looking for it, so they either threw it out or ditched it or whatever the case may be. Cut to many years later, it's on display in Paris. The piece.
Okay. Oh. In what's his name's museum or
not in his
exhibit?
museum?
No,
it's in a separate thing. I probably shouldn't name it because when I reached out and a couple of people reached out, the history on it was very cagey. So I don't know, statute of limitations or things like that. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just reporting facts.
We're not Warner Brothers, so whatever. But yeah.
But it was weird.
I guess we are Warner Brothers. I just realized. Wait a second.
We are, yeah.
Many
this
years.
podcast brought to you by Rooster Teeth.
Yeah, make a citizen's arrest on behalf of Max. Sorry. So it showed up in a collection in Paris, but on display.
On display, yeah, and it's still there. It needs to be restored, but it exists and it's out there, and that's great. But it was a point in time where it was lost for a long time.
Fascinating. Wow. I guess. Well, at least we don't have to search storage unit sales in the greater New York area, so that's something. Fascinating. Okay, so that exists. Mm-hmm. All right, and then obviously there was just in that last sorry, forgive me, prop store auction. There was that
the lobster spinner,
the sort of from the contest or whatever that was. It was a charity piece also or whatever. Right. I can't remember what that story was.
I don't think it was a charity piece. It was on display because I can't place where it is, but I remember those cards specifically.
From Summit, whatever that exhibit was.
Yeah, that had the calligraphy and stuff like that. So I remember seeing it at some point, but I wish I could remember where. But that was on display, and it changed hands from here and there. Interesting thing about the miniatures is going way back pre-Director's Cut, in movie collector world, there was a classified ad, someone selling miniatures from Blade Runner, and I had reached out. And the person had a bunch of buildings, the kind of large-size buildings, the Yukon Hotel building, and the police building.
Oh, wow.
And so I was making a deal to get the police building when the person backed out of the deal and said it was in my garage and I dropped something on it and it got destroyed. And I said, I'll take the destroyed pieces. And it was like, no, I'm not going to sell you the destroyed pieces. I don't know what happened to that. I don't know the full story. If he had found another buyer somewhere else, I suspect, and I don't want to call him out, but I would love to verify this one way or another, if that was Bill George himself, the model maker.
Oh, interesting.
that was selling the pieces. But it was weird because it was a number.
Let's just say it's on display in Paris now.
But I've never seen it since then. I did own the Millennium Falcon building for a while.
Oh, the shape. Yeah.
Yeah, the shape building. But the fun story about that is Bill George was creating a replica Millennium Falcon. The cityscape for Blade Runner wasn't big enough, so they had to throw in some extra buildings. So they turned it upside down, stuck a tower on it, punched some fiber optics in it, and instant building. But when it came to market, I think Bill George wanted to go back to making it the Millennium Falcon, so stripped out all the defining Blade Runner pieces. So the version that's in market that I know is in private collector hands right now, that was in my hands, looks more like the Millennium Falcon than looks like a building from Blade Runner.
I think I'm more interested in it as Blade Runner, and I love the Millennium Falcon, but I think that would be a lot more interesting.
What about the blimp, Steve?
The blimp turned up. It was a Christie's auction in 99, 98, somewhere in that zone. And it was, I remember I was going to take a shot at it. I think Stephen Lane was going to take a shot at it. A couple of people were definitely interested in it. Warner's bought it. Warner's at the time were starting to build out their backlot museum and realized that they were missing a couple of key pieces from a couple of key films. Because they went into their archives and they had some storyboards. I mean, because it wasn't Warner's film; it was a Ladd film.
Yeah,
Warner's distributed it, helped distribute it. So, there's no reason that they would have had a lot of stuff anyway.
Right, and there was that asset sale. So
the asset sale. So yeah, so they really wanted that blimp, and I think they at the time it went for $30. My number might be wrong on that. It was a good price at the time, but it was they
so
weren't.
What do they have at this point that they put on display when they decide to put out like a little? Because they still have that museum, right, on the Warner lot.
Yeah, the Warner's one.
What's their Blade Runner collection? Just the blimp and the one tie, or
the blimp? There's some storyboards. There's a chair. There's a chair from Deckar's apartment that is there's a famous publicity shot of Rachel sitting in this chair. But that's it. There's like next to nothing. Yeah.
Wow. We started with this before we brought you on, but sort of introducing you and what you do for a career. But you took your love of Blade Runner and you actually found your way into our business. And I was saying to Dave, I think this is also one of the rare writer collector guests that we've had. But I mean, I know you're an animation mogul now. But do you identify more as a director now, as a producer, showrunner? Tell us what you're up to right now. What's where you're working and what you're working on?
Well, I kind of identify as all of the above. I still, I'm still a director at heart, so I'm still pretty hands-on to stuff, maybe too much so. And it's funny because I think Dave and I are forever connected with Bear is Driving. From Clerks.
I didn't mention the episode, but I did mention that we.
I didn't know this until we were doing our pre-chat. That's amazing. See?
And it's crazy because I knew
Dave's never hired me for anything.
Well, and you and Ryan, you seem to only hire people that worked on Batman. So what can I say?
And it was crazy because I didn't know Dave was a prop collector. Dave didn't know I was a prop collector at the time. No idea.
It was sort of like years later. Yeah. It was like, wait, you worked on Clerks? You collect prop? It was just like, yeah. I mean, because who would talk about that at work? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, I feel like it's a little bit more public that I guess if you are a prop collector, you might know we have this podcast, and so maybe you would have said something if Clerks was today. But yeah, no, it was sort of like, you the dirty little secret at work. It's like, I'm a prop collector, that guy over there collects child porn. It's like we don't talk about it.
yeah. No, it's crazy, but yeah, it was of course the animated series. I've done. I directed on Ren and Stimpy. I directed and produced Kim Possible.
Ren and Stimpy.
My current show is Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which
Excellent.
is great. Yep. And we just got nominated for
Emmy-winning.
a Peabody. Emmy-winning, which we've had a really great award season, and I'm super proud because we just got nominated for a Peabody.
Oh, that's very great.
Which is
Congratulations.
fantastic. I love that. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. And
I will tell you a very funny Peabody story. Sorry, and I don't mean to turn this into a story about me, but it's sort of connected to me.
This is what he does.
We won an award. We won a Peabody for Veep. And I didn't get to go to the ceremony, but I've seen footage of it. But basically, the award is presented, and I believe Julia and Tim go to pick it up. But basically, they play a clip package, and the Peabody, it's very, very, very important, and it's like all these shows and all the other shows are about these horrible things and whatnot that happen, and then they play a clip package, and it's just like, cunt, fuck you, motherfucker, blah, 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 blah. It's just Veep, whatever, and the audience is just like laughing, whatever, and Julie gets up there and it's just kind of like, maybe we should give this back. But anyway, that was our Veep Peabody experience. You're working with Jeff Howard still, yes, over on on Dinosaur. Is he not on it still? I don't.
He's not on it right now.
Gotcha.
But yes, I worked with Jeff on a bunch of Disney Toon projects way back. Yeah, Jeff and I go way back. Yeah, Jeff has
Jeff is Kelvin's old roommate, Ryan. I don't know if you've met
Yes,
him.
no. Jeff is in Whiskey Club, Dave.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, we don't talk about Whiskey Club. That's the first rule of Whiskey Club.
Steve, did you see? I brought whiskey, and I was trying to find a fitting whiskey that was on theme tonight, so I did. It's Japanese whiskey with the robot on the bottle. And I think, Dave, I brought this previously. I brought the other one, right, that had Godzilla on it. So this is the Mecha Godzilla London edition Chichibu.
Don't we have like a bottle that I have a bottle of it? Wasn't there a 2049?
That god-awful 2049. I don't
drink
There was a 2049
whiskey tie-in?
Yeah.
Like glowing blue bottle?
As Kelvin said famously, that's the most unopened bottle of whiskey in whiskey history.
It is. Yeah,
that's my 2049 prop. Yeah.
Jeff still has a couple of pieces from my other, because I was collecting. I've been collecting for a long time. Not just Blade Runner, but other films too. And he has a couple of key pieces from one of my other big films, which is Escape from New York.
Escape from New York, because he worked for what's her name for a while.
Yeah, Deborah Hill.
So that was my other big question.
But wait. He worked on Escape from L.A., right?
It was for Deborah Hill.
But he worked for Deborah Hill, and she had shit at her office.
She had New York stuff. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe there's a story about like opening a desk drawer and finding an eye patch or something like that. I may be getting the details wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I'm giving my sources out, and I've been working on it for years for this. But it's funny because my major films that I collect are the ones that nothing ever turns up from. It's Blade Runner, it's Escape from New York, it's Mad Max 2 Road Warrior, and it's Brazil. Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Can you name anything?
My big question was I guess what we were headed to was you're not just a Blade Runner guy. Those are your other movies. That's fantastic.
I've had Michael Keaton Batman stuff. I've had Back to the Future stuff. But
that stuff doesn't stay with you the way those other movies you just mentioned. Yeah. I've never seen anything from Road Warrior.
Where is all the Road Warrior? Is it buried in Australia? Is that the deal?
I've tried to apply a little bit of my research ability to some of those other films. And for Mad Max and all of those things, Kennedy Miller has most of the assets for the most part, but they don't care for them in the same way as film history. They see them as reusable pieces. So part of Max's costume from Thunderdome ended up in Fury Road on a secondary character. They cut it up and reused it. So there's that. Although there was a nice dump of Mad Max Fury Road stuff fairly recently, and there was a couple of Max pieces mixed in there. There was a giant axe that was used in the first Mad Max that they used in Fury Road that turned up in public. So but for the most part, I mean, the one piece that I know is out there is one of Gibson's gloves that he sent to a kid who sent him a letter about, I love the film, and he sent him a glove and stuff like that. But I mean, we're all searching for the leather. There was I mean, there's a couple of museums in Australia that have, you know, whatever is turned up, and there's the famous car that, because they of Max's Interceptor, there was like 2 or 3 of them. One they blew up in the film, and they just left it there. Yeah, and it's now, you know, it's now protected because the person who owns the land has now taken possession of it. But before that, it got pieces stolen off at like the gas tanks in the back and things like that. So yeah, crazy,
unbelievable. Yeah, no. So if you one piece from that movie, the leather jacket for you.
Oh yeah, Max's jacket and
the jacket,
yeah.
Obviously. But man, oh man, Feral Kid's boomerang. I mean, come on. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. That would
That's
be
very
incredible.
good.
Yeah.
That's very good. The shotgun's a great.
Shotgun would be great.
The dog.
Yeah, or
the dinky guy can of dog food would be great.
Yeah.
You know,
the Jason mask is great too, you know.
Well, I have a question for you guys, actually, because this is, of course, the most controversial question about Blade Runner of all time. Deckard, human or replicant?
I was going to ask you that, too.
He has to be a human, otherwise the movie is pointless.
Yeah, 100%.
That is what a replicant would say.
I mean, it's about a character who's dehumanized, finding his humanity again. Yeah. If he turns out to be, you know, a replicant, it kind of defeats the purpose.
And also, like, so he's a replicant, but he's the weakest one they built that gets his ass kicked by all the other replicants that have a 4-year shelf life, and he doesn't. It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
He's an older model.
That
just making stuff up.
Yeah. That they built to hunt down. It doesn't make any goddamn sense to anybody. This is the problem with like letting somebody think. I'm all for the final cut where they go in and it's like getting rid of the voiceover that I never wanted in my movie and fixing, you know, Zora going through the plate glass so it's not the stunt double landing and the correct Vangelis cues that were supposed to be in there and whatever.
The stunt double.
Don't go in and say like, oh, it turns out the main character's a robot. Don't go in and take away Yubnub, my beloved Yubnub.
It is a very funny thing that probably pound for pound, Harrison Ford has more movies that people are trying to sort of retcon with new scenes and you know, it's like one actor and it's like fucking Greedo shot first and you're a replicant. I mean, you just kind of like, wait a second. Yeah.
Well, you know
they never fucked with Indy. They just made bad movies, but
I've justified
perhaps the greater crime, but anyway.
I've justified the unicorn. So Deckard dreams of the unicorn in the final cut and then Gaff leaves the unicorn. I'll just take it as Deckard dreams of something that's unobtainable. And somehow the unicorn represents Rachel is not a real thing.
Yeah,
they're chasing something mythical. Not like, see, I know
what's in your dreams.
You dreamt a unicorn because I know what's in your dreams.
Yeah. And in the because the unicorn origami was in the original film, but not the unicorn dream from Legend, right? So the unicorn origami in the original film, I take
him
it
saying
as
congratulations to some extent,
and also like she's a unicorn, like she's the Nexus 7, if you believe all, she's the next model that has memories and doesn't know she's a replicant, whatever. All this stuff just drives me crazy. He's not a replicant. His eye went into the wrong, into the incorrect lighting. It was the lighting that was meant for Rachel, and his eye slipped into it, and they tried to retcon a lighting mistake and make it a whole.
And his badge has an X on it, so that must mean he's a replicant. And there's again a lot of tall tales.
No, it's because he's retired. Yeah. He's twice as quit now.
Why aren't all of the policemen replicants then? Why is there one replicant?
Because, Dave, well, it was nice joining everybody. Thank you. This has been the stuff dreams are made of, and there's no answer. There's no answer.
I have a prop that I'm searching for. Not a prop, but have you ever, Steve, in your travels, ever encountered any of the shirts from the crew T-shirt wars?
The Yes Governor. Yeah, I've seen a few. That's
something I would love to find.
I would love one of those.
I just think that would be.
That's the most common thing you would. I wouldn't say there's a lot of them. I'd say there's a handful, but that's if anyone on the crew is going to keep anything, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That I don't know. That puts a smile on my face just knowing how miserable it all was.
Well, we have to play the game, right? We have to do the game. So I think we have to do Blade Runner because it is a Blade Runner thing, but we're going to do the rule of, because we just did
actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop for 1 second. No,
okay.
I want to go full loop. And actually, Steve, you're the guy. So did you like 2049? Let me start with that really quickly. Yeah.
Yep.
I did like it. I think it's a great film. I don't think it's a Blade Runner sequel. I'll be honest with you. In
Why?
that it's
dig in a little bit.
It feels so disconnected.
We were all at that screening together, right? We all saw it that night at the Chinese or whatever. Not the Chinese, the theater.
It was
where they have the Academy
Kodak.
Awards. Yeah, the Kodak. Yes.
Yeah. It's just. I mean, it's a brilliant film. Beautiful cinematography. Everyone's great in it, but it's just. That's not Deckard. Even Harrison Ford's version of it. That's not Deckard. The fact that Kay is a replicant, I had a little bit of a hard time buying into his story of a replicant searching for humanity, a bit of a Pinocchio complex thing going on. I didn't connect to me and also just the aesthetic was 100% different. So it just didn't, it's a great film, but I don't think it's Blade Runner.
Fair enough. I give it a tremendous amount of credit, I think, for what it wasn't, if that makes any sense. And we maybe have talked about this, Ryan, which is I just give it so much credit, spoiler alert, that he isn't the son. That they sort of set you up for the shitty sequel that everybody else would have made. And didn't do it. Yes. Yeah. And I guess I value that. I'm not questioning anything you're saying. I just in a world of the 20-year later, 30-year later sequels that have just haunted our childhoods with all the just one terrible 30-year sequel after another that just makes you want to like go home and throw all your props in the garbage. I guess I just appreciated the higher level that movie was working on, and I could debate some of the other stuff, but I did appreciate that. But where I truly wanted to bring this around to was because we started our discussion tonight talking a little bit about fake props.
Oh, yes.
The Blade Runner movie is not the original Blade Runner movie, and I guess because of the scarcity is not something where we've particularly seen a lot of fakes in any way, shape, or form, although, you never know. But 2049, interestingly enough, was definitely, from my experience, one of the ones where I went, whoa, where all of a sudden the number of K guns flooding the market and the little, I don't even know what the hell to call it, the little figurine. I mean, there were just,
the wooden horse.
The wooden horse.
Yes, the wooden horse. Yes, exactly. So many fakes. And I was curious if you had been hit by that because people in our field knew you were a Blade Runner guy. So I was curious if you had
# no private deals.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think, and it was interesting because it was, I think, one of the first films that kind of things like that kind of turned. So there wasn't like now, you'll be suspicious of particular pieces coming around. But at that time, you kind of weren't because that wasn't kind of the thing at the time. So yeah, early on, and it was midway through production, I got offered a bunch of K pistols and a bunch of Deckard pistols, and they would send me pictures of them. And the pictures would always be weird. It would be stuff would be blanked out or the photoshopped to show a certain thing, and they showed me like a row of Deckard pistols and things, and at the time you just, okay, this all makes perfect sense, and I was in process, and I even looped in a couple other big time collectors in our circle to kind of get in on this, but things got weird and I got suspicious because it felt like I'm starting to count out how many are being offered around town and things like that. And suddenly there's like, I'm close to like 40 Deckard pistols.
Holy shit, really that many? Jesus Christ.
And I was able to kind of see actually how many they actually made for the film. I was actually to see the whole lineup at one point. I was like less than 10. I mean, whatever, rubber, and they're actually really ornate because the real ones, some of them light up and everything, even though they're stunt rubbers and stuff like that. But yeah, it was an assembly line, and it got to a point where I even asked, like, okay, I'm interested in buying this because I wanted to see it in person. I'll meet you in this parking lot somewhere or whatever. And it's like, no, I need like 6 weeks. I'll meet you in 6 weeks. And it was like,
that paint's got to dry.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I mean, that was just a nail in the coffin. I suspected, but that to me was, and it was like, oh no, I'm out of town. I'm this, I'm that. And it's like,
wow.
Yeah.
Bravo. So how many did you buy? Sorry.
I didn't get any.
Let's cut to the end of the story. How many did you buy? Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, at the prices that they were also being offered at, I wouldn't have minded getting a K because at least it would have been production pieces, like at least made by the same people, and it would have been a nice replica, for that.
I have people that are writing me wanting to buy that Rogue One gin gun as a replica. They're not. They are fully aware that it is not a screen use prop. That is not whatever. But they're like, it looks like a decent replica. I'm like, okay, I guess. Just crazy, yeah.
And the price is suspicious. I mean, it's like $1,500 for a chrome K pistol that has like that grip, that whatever type grip on there.
The carbon fiber thing.
That's not on my price. And you think you're buying a screen used one for $15. Again, we're all kind of like early days of that. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that does my heart good to know that that was going on. That's great. Good to know. I'm going to ask one last question and then we'll get true, because I did want to ask this. Have you ever thought about a book? Have you ever thought about writing some kind of like whether you self-publish, or I realize these days the idea that perhaps whatever Warner's would say, yeah, no, you should do a book, but it feels like you probably would have enough reference and photos and whatnot that you could do the most amazing sort of Blade Runner, I don't know, production
like
prop book history or something like that, or just make 20 of them and I'll pay you $500 for a copy, like that. Yeah.
I would love to do that. I mean, there's been some key people on the journey here that I would love to kind of collaborate with, like Charlie de Lozerica, Phil Steinschneider, Gary Willoughby, Paul Salmon. All those guys were, instrumental in pulling together research and information. But there was a time where some of us kind of reached out, but the Blade Runner partnership is challenging.
Yeah.
To deal with, which is why you're not seeing a lot of merchandising. So yeah, it's I would love to, and yeah, there's definitely certainly for 82, there's a ton of photos and reference. I mean, I had at one point, I think that it's changed hands now, like the EEG effects book, which had every effects shot labeled out and had, these are the layers of this matte painting and this pass.
Oh, so this is this and this is that.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
And it's super. I mean, it's all outdated technology now, but it's super fascinating to see the exposure rates and things like that they use for all these particular shots. And the things that they didn't use, they shot shots of Rachel's eyes, Rachel's lips, and things like that for plug-in purposes, maybe. So yeah, there's definitely fun stuff that can be kind of brought out there, but I'd love to, but it's a challenging landscape.
Yeah.
Very sad. That's a book I would buy and would very much like to read, but no, I totally understand that it's hard enough. I will say it has never bothered me that it hasn't been over merchandised, if that makes any sense. I kind of appreciate that.
It keeps
fact.
It pure.
Yeah. I like that. I can't buy blue milk. You know what I mean? I sort of appreciate that fact. By the way, if one more motherfucker sends me a text or a picture of the blue milk that Star Wars is making, I'm going to fucking change my phone number and never talk to you again. I just want to point that out as we are getting close to the 4th for May the 4th.
Your favorite day.
Go fuck yourself.
your
favorite
I'm
day. Getting fucking sick of it.
Bart, just remind me when we get offline to text Dave about the blue milk.
All right, the game. What game, Ryan? What do you got for us?
Well, I was going to say we should do Blade Runner because this has been fantastic, by the way, Steve. I knew you knew a lot,
great,
but I think hearing it all in like one rush was really, really exciting. So thank you for that. I think we do need to do Blade Runner, but we have to handicap it a bit. So I think it's Blade Runner, but no Deckard pieces. So like, what do you and the costumes, props, to me, anything like, what are you taking home? No Deckard pieces.
Super easy for me. One had turned up in auction, the parking meter.
Really?
I really want that parking meter. Okay. That parking meter to me embodies the entire aesthetic of the movie.
That's amazing.
You know what? I don't disagree. I mean, it's kind of like I thought long and hard about buying that light up umbrella just to kind of go, it's Blade Runner. You know what I mean? Like it's a stupid umbrella, but it's Blade Runner in a nutshell. And I do understand that. I get that.
One turned up. I mean, they made a stack of them for the film, but one turned up. But we have a group of friends that
we're in our own dystopia, Steve.
Yeah, so I didn't go for it. I do regret it. I hope another one does turn up. But it's been how many 40 plus years and another one has not turned up, but that's my thing. Yeah.
Great answer.
That's a good one.
Cool piece.
How about you, Ryan?
I have a bunch of things, but the thing that I go to the quickest, just because I freaking love it, is the chessboard. I just, it's so, to me, it's one of those things where I don't know that it's
whose
the Birds one, the
so the Terrell one or the Jan Sebastian one?
Yeah, the Terrell, right? The Terrell side. That's the one with all the
Terrell one had all the ornate gold.
All the bird characters, right? Am I thinking of the right one? Yeah. It's the one on the because they're playing sort of over text message. But yes, it's the the Terrell side chessboard. I would say either one of the chessboards, because they're just so unique. And I don't know that it's like the Blade Runner aesthetic, as you said, for the parking meter, but to me, I just associate it so much with the movie, and that these two, the most brilliant human designer on earth, plus his great sort of, Frankenstein creation, are playing chess with one another, and it's how he gets into the apartment. Anyway, I just love it. And I love the design of it. And I
believe that's an off-the-shelf item.
Right. Isn't that something? Yeah. I thought they were selling those or something.
Yeah, I think that was.
I've seen them around for sale, but I didn't know that. I thought it was a recreation of the thing that was used in the movie.
I think it's because like the whiskey glasses, right, where it was an off the shelf.
This you can. Yeah. This is CB. It's an Italian crystal company. You can buy it. Right now, go online, search CB CIBI glass, and it will be the most expensive glass you've ever bought. But it's very, very cool.
Terrell, replicant or not replicant?
Well, deleted scene. If a film actually wasn't a deleted scene, they never shot it. He was. Right. Doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense that he was human.
Human. What about you, Dave? What's your answer?
I'm going just to be a little different. I would kill to have a great piece of production art. I think I would just love to have
the Sid Mead
like
art,
Sid Mead original, because so much of that film is the look. And don't get me wrong, I can sit here and I could say to you, yeah, no, of course I'd love like Roy Batty's jacket or, one of these key identifiable pieces. But I guess in a world of like having just one thing, a definitive like Sid Mead Blade Runner piece of art that was just like, that is Blade Runner. That is the aesthetic all in one drawing. I think that for me would be the perfect Blade Runner piece. I think that for me. So that's where I'm going. But also never seen before and never. Yeah.
The originals are pretty small on those. Yeah.
He works very small and keeps his originals. So those two things are very exciting.
Great.
But I feel like there's got to be one that's just sort of like, yeah, I would take that. So
great answer.
Yeah. All righty.
This has been great. Yeah. I should also say the second half of this fine episode has been brought to you by Prop Store. That's propstore.com. Go on there, check their buy now section. I'm sure they have another auction cooking that you can go and check out. But in their buy now field, there's always ways to waste your money and or your children's money. And go do the buy now option, and of course use your Dave 10 code.
Or Steve 10.
Steve 10
or Steve 10.
They will take a Steve 10.
Just on Blade Runner stuff, though, yeah.
Watch Steve just wins the contest now, Dave.
Yeah. He just beats us because somebody buys another V'ger with the Steve 10 code. Steve, can people, I know your shows are on, but can they find you? Do you have a social media presence or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm on everything. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, believe it or not, TikTok, X. And actually, if any information that I discussed is incorrect or there's proof or more information, please get a hold of me because, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong and I will admit it. It's all about gathering the correct information, not being about who's right or wrong. I just want to make sure that the right information is available.
Well said.
But yeah, get a hold of me, please.
Do you post Blade Runner content on your social media? Is that something that is like a runner for you?
There's so much stuff around. There's so many news groups and things like that cover it, and they're actually fairly territorial. Oddly enough, the infamous Blade Runner Mafia, as some people were coined in the 90s. So it's been a little intimidating, but I'm more than happy to kind of, deal one-on-one with collectors, fans, anyone that wants more information. I'm an open resource.
Parentheses, if you have a parking meter, sell it to him. Contact him and sell it to him. Parentheses. Close parentheses.
Especially if you have a parking meter,
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Steve. This was really, really great. Please follow us on social media at Props Podcast. Please like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast app you're listening to, and leave a comment. Comments help us too with the crazy sort of just insane mathematics of how and why people listen to stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think I'm going to do an unboxing video, so look for that. I'm going to do an unboxing video. I got a box of my second Greg Jean auction winnings. I'm going to film myself opening it because apparently that's what you do.
Great.
And I'm going to do that.
For people.
Put that up. So check that out. That's going to be very exciting. What else, Ryan? Our email is
dreamsaremadeofpodcasts@gmail.com.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.